I think keywords are dead at this point.
Ooh, the gold rush of AI is here.
There are videos that you can create where you can literally walk into that world, and that just blew my mind.
I'm a bit tired of people saying automation is AI and AI is automation.
Bots are going to be doing a lot of the legwork when we look at the internet of the future. They're investing like £350 billion into this sort of thing.
That's a ridiculous figure. Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. I'm Nick, head of paid media performance at a company called Impression.
And hi, I'm Chris from Can Do, and this is the podcast all about performance marketing and AI. I guess we're doing this podcast because obviously the AI era is massively changing at such a rapid pace, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty mad to think about how far we've come in such a short space of time. I don't know, the gold rush of AI is here in marketing, Not to fearmonger, but sort of need to be adapting.
Absolutely, and I think it's at a time where you're looking at like Amazon, Meta, Google, OpenAI, they're investing like £350 billion into this sort of thing. So AI infrastructure is going to be massive this year.
Yeah, but on the other side of it, we're seeing the platform adoption as well, not just the infrastructure, but we use the tools every day. Like we've got AI Max for search, we've got PMax, we've got Advantage Plus. Like there's so many products that have come out which are all AI driven, and It's not a new thing, but it feels like it feels very new at the moment.
It feels new because I think there's so much just every week there feels to be something new, and then someone else will follow it, and then a new tool will come out, and it's rapid, but it's great. And I think that's why we're doing this podcast now.
Yeah, I think it's cool to be in marketing at this point in time, and I know that people can get a bit scared or reticent to use it, but let's just see it as a bit of fun, that it's the next learning and the next chapter of how we're really going to probably make clients some really good results.
Yeah, I don't want to foreshadow, but I think keywords are dead at this point.
Ooh.
So we'll see what happens, right? But let's see how this next hour goes, have a little bit of a chat, and hopefully the viewers at home see what you can learn. So obviously, like the biggest thing I think that we've seen at the moment is all these platforms are just investing so much into AI. A lot of marketers as well, I don't think necessarily know what AI is. And a lot of people I've seen are actually saying, oh, this is AI, when it's just a process. It's a bit of code, isn't it? So I guess thinking about what is AI to you, like what is it? What are you working on? What kind of cool stuff are you seeing happening?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, because I feel that we have this conversation internally at Impression around AI and automation. Aaron, our tech director, brought up and he was like, I'm a bit tired of people saying automation is AI and AI is automation, and it sparked a few debates internally. But yeah, for me personally, I think what I'm working on is just trying to use it on my everyday, not necessarily just for work, but trying to integrate into most things that I do. And it's actually sped up a hell of a lot of the stuff I do. I know that we've spoken about the music side of things. I mean, it's a big passion project, but I now have an AI engine that recommends me new music daily, which is pretty cool to say, but I think Spotify isn't exactly the best at doing it. What about yourself? Like, is there that you've been working on, but you're like, this is pretty cool?
Yeah, I think for me, the stuff that I'm working on is just to save my time. As you can imagine, I'm a one-man band. I'm in a business where it's just me and maybe like one or two guys helping me on certain projects. So to use AI, not like client-facing, but to help me with stuff in the background is really cool. So obviously you had the great recommendation a few months ago of Nan, N-A-N for anyone who's listening. And that has just been revolutionary in what I'm doing to just help analyze stuff in the back end. And, you know, really for me, I just see the art of the possible. I'm no coder, right? But I can kind of see a workflow. And if I can get something working really quick and really fast that saves me like 5 hours a day, I can invest that 5 hours into something that only a human can do. And ultimately, a lot of PPC and a lot of performance marketing, I think at the moment, is so numbers based. It's analyzing numbers. It's looking at numbers. It's looking at spreadsheets and P&Ls and CPCs. And we lose sight of the bigger picture, I think, a lot of the time. So to have AI that's got my back for 20 quid a month is a no-brainer.
I think with what you're saying as well, like that you're using it the right way, in my opinion. I know we've had a few, dare I say, people that are shouting about replacing people's jobs or replacing people at companies or replacing tasks that are actually really beneficial for us. I know that ad copy is quite a contentious one, but I believe what you're doing and giving yourself a time back to really pour the stuff into things that require human input is the way to do it. It's about speeding up the stuff that is causing you a hassle that you hate doing, so you can actually spend the time doing things you love and provide that real value back to the people you work with, or just for yourself as well.
I think there's definitely a risk that people, like, it's great to use AI, but it's almost like taking it too far, which is the one big risk that I have as well. So I know some tools that I work with or have worked with in the past. They're great tools, but then they just stick a chatbot on there and say, look at our AI product, when all it is an API plugin from ChatGPT that's got a little bit of data from the company in question. So AI is brilliant, and I think we're going to learn a lot in this hour in terms of just what makes a good AI system and how marketers can really benefit from it. But it's also that kind of watch out, is to say, don't just go to the nearest salesman who's offering you AI when it's just a bit of snake oil. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, some really interesting stuff there.
I think the snake oil thing, I think this is a thing that people do have to be wary of, right? Is that it's not just snake oil, but it's people that are touting AI as being the best thing for everything, and I think it's not all the time, and we've seen it. There's hallucinations within like chatbots. There's code that just doesn't work, or there's still that big bit of human input. And I think if I was going to tell people today, like, what do you want to get out of this? It's that it is actually humans and AI, which is the winning combination, not just AI and AI. Like, we're still quite important, funnily enough.
I think if we take humans out of it, we left everything to the bots, it's terrifying. And there's definitely is that human element that's needed from like a creativity point of view. But the point of hallucinations, oh my God, right? I've seen so many clients that will just literally put something, like, take something I say, put it into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT spits out a completely different answer. Great example I had, and I just hope my client isn't watching me that said this. But we were talking about CSS platforms, the Google PLA thing, and how you can get 20% cheaper CPCs by going to a CSS platform. And we onboarded them into the CSS platform, and they were going, well, are there any downsides of having a CSS product versus by Google? The answer is no, but of course ChatGPT didn't have my back, and it kind of spat out how we're going to be at a disadvantage. And I was just like, please just don't listen to everything that it says. Take it with a pinch of salt, do your research. It can aid what you do, but don't just kind of go at it with zero knowledge, particularly in the performance marketing space where you have to know the ins and outs of everything before you then try to iterate the next step.
It's a really interesting point, and I think there's some really interesting and cool things that are happening at the moment, which I think people really forget about. And the small principles, like if you've ever read Rebel Ideas by Matthew Syed, or any other books like that talk about confirmation bias, the one thing that I'm seeing at the moment is everybody's a genius when you speak to ChatGPT or Gemini or any of the others. And I think we actually need to challenge. So whilst you're saying that CSS and it's giving you the negatives of it, it's like actually challenge the like machines and the LLMs you're using, because quite often it'll either agree with you or it'll go down some narrative that might not be fully correct. So I think the way that you prompt is actually really important nowadays.
And that's probably a really good segue into some actionable advice there for people, because I know you yourself, you kind of got these LLM models pre-built that are challenging each other. So you don't even have to challenge it in some ways. You've kind of got, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but you've kind of got one that's like a branded point of view, maybe one that's a numbers point of view, and they're saying, well, that doesn't match to the branded voice, or, that doesn't match up to my commercial figures that I'm working to. So how are you using that at the moment to kind of bridge things together?
Yeah, it is really interesting, but the one that I am using is actually a bit of a shameless plug for myself.
Class.
Long story short, I got a bit sick, and everybody writes on LinkedIn, right? And everybody, wants to get up-to-date news and other bits like that. So I've actually got an NAN. How do we actually pronounce this? I say NAN, you say it NAN.
Yeah, nan, and it's like, because it's an N and an A and an N, I don't even know how to pronounce it, but I'm just calling it Nan to people and hope they don't look at me weirdly like I'm using a family member to do all my work. But
Good old
N-A-N,
Nan.
right? Yeah, good old Nan.
But yeah, what do you guys think? NAN, Nan, what we're saying? I think we've got two camps here, so it'd be interesting to understand what people actually think. But yeah, I've actually got a little system at the moment, and for people that don't know NAN, I think it'd be good just to explain that it's more of a process builder. It integrates different AIs, APIs, and essentially allows you to a sandbox for building process and loops for like anything, to be fair. And the one that I've been using, I think we are referring to, is one that essentially does all my research for deep research using OpenAI and querying one of their agents. Goes through the web for the past week and then essentially creates a little list for me and writes a lovely little LinkedIn post. If anybody's seen my AI updates on a Monday morning or Tuesdays at the moment, and it's got a very interesting brand tone of voice, it's because I'm training an agent to understand and be a bit more Nick Handley, which is quite fun, but also quite scary that it's getting quite close, and I'm not having to edit too much as it currently stands.
I can imagine it's probably quite difficult to get it to sound like you, because only you know you, but then when you take a step back and go, well, how do I sound? That's probably actually quite a difficult thing to pick apart. I mean, we all know what it's like, an AI is like, because it uses the M dashes, it uses Americanisms, it uses certain verbs that you just wouldn't otherwise use. So that's a really interesting one. What have you kind of learned from that process so far about yourself or about AI?
I think when I fed AI my LinkedIn profile and my brand tone of voice was created, it was slightly different to how I've perceived myself. And granted, I'm not saying that it is correct, but it made me realize that actually, do I need to change how I write on LinkedIn, or is it ever going to get the sort of like Yorkshireisms that I use? Because I, funnily enough, speak. I write how I speak in a lot of ways, and I find that machines and like AI hasn't been particularly great at doing that. It wants to have more structure, it wants to follow certain syntax, and because Yorkshire in general doesn't follow the syntax of the English language in a lot of ways, and there's a lot of colloquialisms, it really struggles with it. So quite often I have to rewrite a lot of it, and I think that's always going to potentially be the case now. Maybe not in the future, but for the foreseeable, I think I'm going to have to rewrite. Is there anything that you've been using? Because I know that you've mentioned about speeding up process behind the scenes so you can give more value to clients. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, well, the stuff I'm doing is relatively basic at the moment because I'm just trying to get an understanding how it works. But interestingly, I've started to use Docker within the kind of the process. And for anyone listening out there, you probably got a NAN software, which is maybe 20, 30 quid a month to host the code in the cloud. But if you use Docker, you can actually self-host a lot of that kind of machine capability. So I can wake up in the morning, flick Docker on, and then run some code that's the actual AI piece. Or I can probably build a computer and have that running in the background that just runs that AI at all times. But the initial test that I did was literally just going on to Gemini, Grok, Perplexity, other platforms, and just pulling in when a brand actually shows. Does a brand show for certain query? Like, does AO show for who sells dishwashers in Manchester? Or what is the reason I shouldn't shop at John Lewis? Does AO come up then? And I basically just put in a load of queries across all these different platforms and just said, does it show? Does it show positively or negatively? And when it doesn't show, why is that? Was it a competitor showed in its place? Which competitors are those? And, I'm not someone who's sat here just blasting through all my API credits, but what I can do is build up a bit of a rough image of within that space. Is a competitor showing? Is a brand showing? I know there's some competitors out there, big, I don't mind calling them, but, Ahrefs, there's other platforms out there that are great SEO tools. They're charging 500 odd quid a month just to pull some data in. And I can do that for 30 pence. Do you know what I mean? Through these platforms. So people should definitely use them. But the point I think around your kind of using it as a draft engine is so true. I think I've seen so many what I like to call AI slot posts on LinkedIn where they've just literally gone, right, boom, let's go through a process, write it for me, copy paste in there. And I think actually now that's probably a great area to get ahead in, is just by showing human-led content, showing yourself, showing us having a conversation, showing that this isn't done by AI, and full transparency. Some AI might be used for the editing to help us get the shots right, but this is just us speaking. This is just us having a conversation. So I think that is going to be really powerful content. But I think for the future as well, content is king. We all know that. Whether that we can track that on certain sites or not, content's going to live on for a long time. I'm not expecting 100 leads to come in overnight for a conversation that we have. But I think it's about over time building authority and building that kind of trust and that audience that know who you are, that trust what you do, so that when someone is looking for what you offer, whether it is performance marketing or is AI, they know exactly the sort of people to go to.
Yeah, for sure. I think we can both probably say this is that we're both, I think, probably being a bit more in tune with the digital world, and especially LinkedIn, probably in the past year. And I know you've gone doing your own thing. I'm just doing it out of a pure joy of I actually quite enjoy writing about things. But I think we're both spending a lot more time trying to show the human side of who we are, instead of it just being I'm Chris who can run amazing PPC campaigns or like really manipulated data to produce the best results. But I think you're right. Creativity is going to become, in my opinion anyway, one of the I suppose, most sought after commodities, because we're going to probably optimize and automate and use AI for things that were sort of like the stuff that we've always done and our bread and butter, which is big analysis or understanding how we can, I don't know, review ad copy or other bits like that. I think you are bang on with saying that, creativity and being creative and being personable and the rest of it is actually really, I think, probably going to be in one of the demand sort of areas now and probably in the future.
Yeah.
It's, as you said, it's why we're doing this.
Yeah.
It's quite fun.
Yeah, it's absolutely fun. I like, if you'd have spoken to myself 12 months ago, I'd be like, I'd never get in front of a camera. I love doing PPC behind the closed doors, and I'd never do that. But actually, owning my own business, I understand now the value of just being out there. When people are looking for your product or service, no matter what that is, they're going to think of who they know and who comes up top of mind, who they've seen on the LinkedIn feed, what emails they've got. They're not going to delve deep and spend 4 hours trying to find someone in the realms of LinkedIn or a contact directory or whatever. They're just going to go to who they've seen and who they trust and who they know. And I think, yeah, it stands the test of time, like good content. And hopefully that's kind of what we're providing, is just that little bit of value. Apart from N8N or NAN, is there anything else that you're using? I know you mentioned to me before there's potentially like Notion that you've used as well. Like how are you using that?
Yeah, Notion's really, really good. And it's something that, for context, I've got ADHD and organising myself can sometimes be quite difficult. Notion is great, especially when working with other people. Shameless plug, but we're planning Performance Manchester 2026, which is pretty cool. So Charlie and I have been planning on that with Beth and Stacey and Gareth as well. Yeah, we're using Notion as our sort of like our Bible. So we've all got different areas that we're owning, but it's really good at making sure that when we input anything, it organizes it into the correct areas. And it's starting to create like the little system that we can all just go in and understand what is being done and when it needs to be done by. But also, I don't have to long form or spend hours poring over my time of doing data entry. I can just speak to it. I can, give it an entry that I've put through ChatGPT or, Gemini and throw it straight in. It seems to organize it pretty damn well. So that's one of the other tools that I am using. And for me, that organization side has always been, I won't say a sore spot, but something I don't particularly care for. I'm quite chaotic in how I organize my life.
No,
so this really helped. I imagine, do you use Notion or you're using other tools similar?
I've never actually used Notion before. I was going to actually ask, like, for anyone out there who doesn't know what Notion is, like, what is it? How much does it cost? And like, what can you do on it that maybe you can't by just going on to ChatGPT?
I think the probably biggest distinguisher of Notion is that it's actually a full-on note-taking app that also allows you to use like tables and boards. So imagine Trello, in my opinion, crossed with ChatGPT is probably it's like the child of those two together, where it provides that sort of like Jira-esque, Trello-esque like project management, but allows you to integrate the sort of cool features of ChatGPT or some form of LLM as well. In terms of costing, I actually have no idea because I don't pay for it. Funnily enough, Charlie Brennan, our one true conference person, is the person that pays for it.
Fair. Well, we'll get on to her and we'll make sure she's putting a link in the comments or something to put the pricing there. Tell us and our viewers how much it is. But I think it is easy just to stack up so many cost subscriptions and things like that. So to be able to get something for free like N8N or NAN, like it's free if you have Docker, which is free, and you just need a bit of technical setup, but there's plenty of YouTube videos out there that tell you how to do it. And massive shout out as well to Performance Manchester. You guys absolutely like rocked it this year, the first one, and Charlie and the team, everyone. I was so impressed with just how it was. The venue was amazing, and to say it's like the first event of that kind is purely like, it was unbelievable. It's so many better than like 90% of other events I've been to. It's probably the best event I've ever been to. And it was everyone there was just in the same boat. Everyone loves performance marketing. Everyone was doing the doing. The sponsors were brilliant. They're tools that I use. So it's a really good collaboration. I can't speak highly enough of it. So really looking forward to the next one as well.
Yeah, it should be good. I think, let's be completely transparent, Charlie was the main driver this year, and there's people on the side like Beth. I'll shout Beth out massively. She helped out a hell of a lot. But next year there's a bit more of a group of us, there's a bit more organisation, and we're taking all the learnings from this year and putting that into like the planning for next year as well. Imagine like more dialed in event that we're actually going to showcase what the North has to offer, but also bring some more amazing speakers and probably invite some of them back. Cough cough. But
Class. We'll see. I mean, I already saw when I saw the original lineup, I was like, bloody hell, like they're traveling from Barcelona or they're traveling from wherever it was in Europe to come and be there. And I think that's just a sign of the credibility that Charlie and everyone in the team has, but just a sign of what the need is as well for this kind of stuff, because other than maybe London, there aren't that many kind of performance marketing events in this area, and it costs you maybe 200 quid to get down to London.
Yeah.
Or if you want to go to, I'm going to one in Italy in October, it's going to cost me like 100 quid for a flight. So in order to get that, it's so sorely needed. And I think everyone, there's brands that I didn't even know existed that I learn a lot from. So yeah, really cool stuff.
There's been a lot of like hearsay around AI in the brand and agency world, and whether it's going to take jobs, whether agency owners should be worried, whether people should be worried for their jobs as well. But I saw a really interesting post by Stephen Kenwright earlier today, floating around LinkedIn, about how people shouldn't really be worried about it, but continue doing what you're doing, but be aware it's there, but don't shit yourself about it. What's your takes? You're from a brand background. You're not agency folk like me. You come from AO and other places like that, as I suppose your last roles that you've had.
Yeah, if I try and put myself in the shoes of an AO or something like that, and in fact, clients I've talked to recently, they're being told by their boss and their boss's boss, get on AI, get it sorted, get it figured out. And I suspect that's exactly what's happening. Even when I left there, which is 15 months ago, and a lot has changed in 15 months, right? But they were all about like, how should we be using it? I don't think people should be scared, but what I do think they should be doing is taking the initiative with it and seeing how it works. We've already seen there's so much red tape for a lot of large companies. They're really scared that ChatGPT is going to take their P&Ls and then it's going to go over to a Currys and say, hey, look at what AI is doing, spoiler alert. And in fact, there is a little bit of that going on, because what it is doing is it's training its models, right? And it's using all this data that you're bringing into it. So you do have to be careful. But I do think that red tape, particularly across bigger businesses, is just holding them back from even using it in the first place. In fact, I think there's been a few banks that have outright banned the use of kind of ChatGPT and OpenAI and a few other platforms because they're just so scared of the data that it might take from them and how they're using it. So you do have to be careful, and that is a big caveat. But the opportunity is massive, and there just aren't enough people that are taking that kind of leap of faith, I guess. So if I was in the shoes of a company, and if I was wanting to get promoted and absolutely, nail the fight, I would go to my boss and say, look, if we implement this in AI, this simple NAN tool, this simple Notion tool that costs 20 quid a month, we're not going to put any sensitive data in. It's going to save us 5 man hours a week. It's going to save us 10 man hours a week. That could be a new hire, or that could be, something else. It's definitely not taking jobs, but it will massively influence jobs. I think it's going to really make a difference of how far you're willing to go in a company. If you think about it in real human terms, why are we doing marketing? The answer is to make money, to make profit. And if you can show that you have a commercial mindset, and if you can show your boss that you have a commercial head on, then you are going to go very far.
I think it's a well-rounded view. I think the only thing that I would probably query and question on that is around like the information you feed, especially LLMs. Like, let's be completely transparent. Most people aren't using N8N, or like they're probably using Notion or a smaller pocket, especially the amount of ad spend they're putting around the UK at the moment. Notion are really trying to get in there. But I think if we're talking ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, all the other LLMs that do exist out there, if you're paying for a pro version, it theoretically shouldn't be using your data to train the algorithm. It shouldn't be training itself on the data you're providing it. So you're sort of a bit safer, like to put client data in, or to put more sensitive data in. I wouldn't necessarily say you should be doing it wholesale, but like if you are stripping out client names or stripping out sensitive information, I don't see a problem with it per se. But I think it's horses for courses, and it could quite easily bite me in the arse in years to come when I've Googled my own name and then put it into ChatGPT and asked some quite personal questions about myself, and it's now surfacing on the front page of Google. I doubt that'll ever happen.
No.
But I get your point, by the way. I think do your research and have a read into the policies and privacy data models that exist around these things. Obviously, if there's certain data that needs to be held for 30 days.
I think in a lot of cases, we've probably got to ask for forgiveness over asking for permission. If we're all just bundled up and not doing a lot, we're never going to get anywhere. And if you don't innovate, you evaporate, right? And that's exactly what I hear James Sinclair saying all the time. So we just need to try something new, try something different. That's what people want. They don't want the same old, let's bid on exact match, let's bid on broad match, let's try this new static creative. They want something really cool. And in fact, spoiler alert, because I haven't actually built this in NAN, but my next project that I'm really wanting to do is build an ad creative tool process in NAN or N8N that basically analyzes all of like meta content, Google ads, site links, images. It finds what's working well each and every week. And then what it does is it briefs the creative team based on what's performed really well. So no longer do you have to wait on a weekly report for a PPC manager to say, hey, the red worked really well, or the fact that we had a pet in it worked really well. It's instantly analysing it every week, every day to say, listen, this is a trend. People really like this dog image over this picture of a cactus. Let's push that more. Give me 10 more iterations of that. And to have that workflow of me not having to worry about ad analysis every hour, then knowing that something's doing it for me and it can churn out 10 more images. In time, we might not even need that creative person. We can get Gemini to do all that for us and test that. And oh my God, the fact that is insane how quick that's evolving. I think I saw on VO3 the other day, and there are videos that you can create where you can literally walk into that world. And that just blew my mind. And we will just be, I think for the next year, we're just going to be completely blown away, aren't we?
100%. We're going to be blown away. There's some cool things that are happening. A woman I work with called Colette, she raised it in a work chat where she's found, I can't remember the exact name of it, but I will find it. But it's an Amazon-owned product that allows you to put yourself into your own cartoons and create your own storyline and animated story. And it is insane how good it actually is at the moment. And I think like it is creative, but you can tell it's AI. But I think for like images, like you're talking about images and using Imagen and using VO and other products like that. For let's just say Google Ads is a really easy example, and if we look at like PLAs, like product listed ads, shopping, PMAX, all the others that require feed data, like how nice is it to be able to just like, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put a lifestyle image because it's now obviously an attribute that we should be using as well. But like we should be doing like lifestyle product imagery alongside just your standard on a white background. And I think things like Imagen are making it incredibly easy to do that. And for me, that's mad. It's quite scary that it may put certain people out of roles, or it may take studio time away. But if you're on a quick edit that you need to be like, I need to put this live, at least you've got the access to do it. I think it's not commoditizing it, but in a sense, it's bringing it onto a fair playing field for a lot of people that may just be like, I need a picture of a car running next to a volcano. Probably never going to get that shot in real life unless you've got big budget. It's sort of changing the game where I feel smaller competitors now have a fairer playing field. I'm not sure what your thoughts are on that, but
I think if you look at like a sofa manufacturer, right, you've got maybe the huge players out there, the DFS, they can afford to spend big bucks on big agencies with huge creative budgets that go out to a venue and they shoot all day and then they get an editing team and do all that. In theory, it's not going to be as polished, but I could talk to one of these guys and get them using VO and they can create something that's quite interesting and quite unique in probably about 3 seconds, right? I've seen some images of people doing that with IKEA. So they've got like an IKEA cardboard box and it explodes and all the IKEA furniture just happens to fall in the exact place around the room, which is pretty cool. Really, just a bit of a personal example. I have a friend, Jack Cullen, by the way. Shout out to Ali if he's listening. He was buying a house, and his wife really wanted to understand like how things would look differently. So like the new house is a completely new build. So you've got the rendering and the images. They wanted to know what it'd like be with black handles or a black door or an orange floor. Let's say some mad examples, right? But let's just go there because there is branding colours. And but this company in question, this new house build, they couldn't tell them what it would look like with a certain carpet or a certain chair. In fact, all he needed was a ChatGPT or some other platform like that, and you could say, right, here's a picture of the chair that I want on this island with some blue doors and whatever, and it just showed him exactly what the house would look like and stuff like that. If you can integrate that into a business, I think that's just the possibilities. I can't think of all the top of my head, but the possibilities are almost endless.
I think there's companies that are actually starting to take this quite seriously, and I think probably the ones that are going to be on the forefront and pioneering what we see happen with AI. And I don't think it's going to take away from what people are doing, but it's almost like I've always say you need an AI strategy that's integrated into the business, not a strategy that's got AI on top of it. Which sounds a bit tongue in cheek, but I think it might be Boots that at the moment are hiring for an AI and automations manager, which it just shows the times are changing where these roles are becoming more prevalent and probably will be at the centre of either agencies or brands. And I think it's going to happen a hell of a lot more in the next year or so where those roles become a lot more applicable for people. I actually really like no code. I know a tiny bit of JavaScript and a tiny bit of SQL, but let's be honest, I'm no coder or developer, and I imagine you might be the same. But being able to vibe code, per se. As like also gonna coin, I reckon that's gonna be it's gonna be phrase of the year is vibe coding.
Nice.
I'm calling it now. But yeah, it's massively changing the game where people with like normal skill sets that aren't developers can do this. So those roles are going to be, I reckon, open to a lot of people unless people wanted dedicated platforms built.
Yeah, exactly. I think for a lot of people listening to this, they will probably think AI, coding, it's learning all this data about me and I need to do this, that, and the other. And I was the same. I was going, oh my God, there's so many like Python, what's this and what's that. But N8N is a great example of I can give you the code and I can show you the code, or I can flip that on its head and just show you a nice interface and say that this links to this, which links to that, which links to this API or that URL. And it's so methodical and logical that it's surprisingly easy to do. And I definitely don't think people should be scared of AI, but it's super interesting that the likes of Boots are now doing that. You know, I know some great guys at Boots. I used to work with Neil Jones, who kind of heads up the performance marketing team, and Callum, who kind of looks after the paid social stuff. And some of the stuff I keep seeing on kind of social is really, really interesting. And to know that's almost like being fueled by AI, the power of the data that they have must be like really, really high, because not only are you optimizing an online journey, but you're also optimizing an offline journey. And that must be really, really tricky to do as well, as in connecting all those dots together.
With the Boots example as well, you've raised a really interesting point, and it's about data density and data quality and what you actually feed into an engine or feed into AI. It's exactly the same as it has been. Like data quality is going to be key and paramount to pretty much doing most things with AI, or the prompt that you put in, or the instructions or the parameters that you set need to follow certain structures for it to actually work well. And I think it's something people massively overlook when you talk to them. Like, oh yeah, I've got a prompt that builds ad copy in the space of like 2 minutes. I'm like, it's probably not going to be the best because it requires a hell of a lot more input and a lot more, I suppose, context versus what you can do with a blank query. So I know people say we'll use JSON files or other things. I've literally found, and I think it's the biggest one, is give the context to your business, give the context to what you're wanting to do, and provide it with examples, and it seemed to get a lot better output. And same with N8N or NaN or whatever we want to call it, like presetting everything and having your credentials set and having like pre-prompt set and being able to connect directly into platforms. It saves you one, a lot of time, and two, massively speeds up the actual development of what you can do in there, especially if you use their AI assistant where it actually tells you like, I'm stuck, and it's like, all right, we've got all this done already, now you just need to connect this in or change this around. Like that context and that data density is really key to produce some really cool stuff.
Yeah, really cool. I think we keep touching on this, but the whole AI and human is really prevalent. The one big thing that I saw over the last couple of weeks was those AI agents that have been released. I think it was on ChatGPT a couple of weeks ago, and that's just where it'll go and try and do things around you on the internet. And this just completely just throws so much up in the air, because a lot of the things that we look at and have been told to do is, don't let bots in, don't do that, optimize for humans. And in fact, bots are going to be doing a lot of the legwork when we look at the internet of the future in the next 10, 20 years. So you need to be letting the bots in. You need to be having a website that's fit for the bots, but it can go away and it can do things. And then if it is to hit a recapture, it goes, well, hold on, here's the controls back, fill out this recapture. Okay, I'll then go and book your Uber for you. Okay, I need your card details. And then it lets you do it. And it's incredible how it's human and AI working together. And if you just think about how much time people will be saving, if I was like an exec of a company, let's say, I wish, right? But let's just say I wanted to get someone to order me an Uber and then do my shopping for me. I could now, rather than hiring an executive assistant or a team, just put it into my phone and say, I'm having a roast on Sunday. Get me all the stuff from Tesco for delivery at 7 p.m. And it just does it for me. And to think that that's going to be the future is scary, of these little ghosts going around the internet. But it's going to be so much more optimized for robots than it ever has been, that I think websites need to be built for that in mind.
It's one that I thought about is like, do we need to be more simplistic in how we build websites and flows of being able to complete, like get from A to B, and eventually, I know you mentioned about card details. I completely get it. Like I was using ChatGPT, an agent, the other day, and I was asking it to add songs to a Spotify playlist, and it was like, I just need your logins and credentials. And I think the scary thing is, I went back to it today, and I was like, right, I'm going to continue this. And it remembers my logins and credentials, which I'm not sure how I fully feel about it, but I think data and privacy is something that we really need to take into consideration at some point down the road, because I'm not sure how comfortable I feel with giving ChatGPT or any of these agents that are being built by multiple different services my actual details to things that really matter in my life.
Yeah.
That's a completely different conversation.
Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But no, if you look at like, let's face it, right? Scammers will do anything to get hold of your details. They imitate banks, they imitate big authorities. They will try to imitate something of value to you. So if they get your details, or if they find a way of getting your details, or they can emulate a chatbot and you put your email into a chatbot that isn't actually a chatbot, it can be really easy to lose your data or your identity, right? So it's definitely a good point to be wary. And I think data privacy regulations will 100% come down the road. You just look at the amount of investment behind AI, it would be wrong of it not to follow after. So as long as we're on the pulse in terms of data regulations, data privacy, but also how we can make the most of AI, those are the two kind of pillars that I think people should be looking at. My question for you is, if someone was starting afresh with let's say they're a marketing exec at a company, they've only been doing it a couple of years, they're learning the ropes of performance marketing, and they're going, you know what, I really wish I'm stacked. I really wish I had something AI process that helps me with this one thing. What would your advice be for that?
If you don't have the background, leave your automation and your like workflow tools off the table. Don't go down the rabbit hole of N8N or make.com. The easiest one is use an assistant that's going to be really helpful that you enjoy using. Give yourself 20 quid a month to, subscribe to the pro version of Gemini or of ChatGPT. I would then start using that and querying the things that you're finding hard or you want to speed up. I put those into there. You don't need a fully automated workflow, and I think people try to skip this step of when you build things out. I didn't go straight to like, right, I'm going to build automated workflows in N8N. I was like, right, here's a spreadsheet into Gemini or ChatGPT, analyze the data or tell me what I could do differently with this formula or how I'm structuring the data. And that sped up more time than actually getting it into the automated workflow. That probably my biggest thing is learn how to query and how to prompt. People call it prompt engineering, which I'm not fully sure what I like or not. But irrespective, get yourself a plus or pro version of an LLM, like as I said, Gemini, and learn how to prompt it correctly to get what you want out of it. And it's very definable into your field. And if you work with Google or you're a Google sort of integrated marketing agency like we are, or if you work with Google internally, Gemini is probably the one I would recommend because it actually integrates with all Google products. So you can essentially just do a hashtag Google ads or anything like that, and it should theoretically provide some pretty decent stuff on the back end of it. Nice. I use it with Drive all the time when I can't find things in my Drive. I'm like, because I do not organize it. I'm just like, I'm looking for this. The file contains this form of data, and it pulls it out straight away. So yeah, that'd be my general thought. What about yourself?
Nice. No, I second that. I recently used it I was in Drive itself, and there's that little star that popped up, and I was like, oh, this is a new feature, let's check it out. And all my contracts are in there, all the call notes are in there because Gemini then transcribes all my calls. And what I didn't want to do was go back to the client and say, sorry, can you just tell me what the budget is for next month again? All I needed to do was query this and say, right, for these 4 accounts, what's the budget next month? What KPI am I looking towards? And what was the tone of voice of the client? Were they positive? Were they negative? Were they fearful of the results? And we can go from there. And you know what? I got a lot out of just by querying that data set. I think that's now in ChatGPT where you can plug it into your calendar and you can plug it into Drive. So you can just say, like, what's my diary like next week at between 4 and 6? You can say, what key things do I need to be? What locations do I need to be at? And it's so helpful. It's like just having a full-time person in your pocket that you can just ask any question at any time of the day. And the fact that it is through Google as well, I'm pretty confident there's a lot of privacy regulations in place there. It's not going to be using all of your contractual information for then something completely different. But yeah, really interesting.
A quick one that it's more of something to look into. I imagine you probably use it. Have you ever used Crisp AI?
No, I haven't.
Crisp is fantastic. I work a lot in coffee shops, and this isn't something that really relates to anything we've spoken about, but it's just come to the top of my mind, and it's something that I would highly recommend everybody to get and download. Crisp AI is a noise cancelling, but it's AI noise cancelling, so it listens to the environment like you've had before, but it's really bloody good at doing it. I work in coffee shops quite a lot. I work overseas now and again, and it can sometimes be quite noisy, especially if I'm taking a call in an airport, and it saved my life so much when there's so much noise in the background, but nobody's heard a thing. And I've questioned people like, can you hear me? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely crystal clear. So yeah, get Crisp AI if you have a chance. It is worth it.
That is really cool. How much is it a month out of interest?
There's a free version which I use, so free. But I think the pro version or the better version, something like 10 quid. It's nice. Nothing.
No, definitely worth a shout. I heard that. Like, we're based in Manchester now at the Outset Studio, and before this I was in a Costa, and you just think it is mad. Like in Manchester, so many people running around. If you're taking calls with your little earbuds on, even if they've got noise cancellation as active, it doesn't do a lot to take stuff out. So I'll definitely take a look at that. I think that's the purpose of this podcast, really. Like, we're focused on AI and performance marketing, but anything that's just helpful to people, I think is really cool. I'm definitely going to be taking that away and looking at it because, yeah, I have so many calls. I'm just like, I can't quite hear, or can you hear me? And it's painful. But all of our calls now are online these days, aren't they? I do have obviously in-client meetings, but it's so much easier just to pick up a Google Meet with someone. A, because it's quick and easy, but B, because there's all the notes that come on the back of that as well. I've actually been to so many in-person meetings now where I've gone, where's my AI note taker? Well, who's recording this? And it is, yeah, it's kind of saved my life a lot of times, I think. Right, I've got some stats here for you. We're going to do the stats round. I was having a look at some before this, and some really interesting stuff that I've got on my laptop in front of me of some of the insane numbers that are coming through out of AI. Just really interested as to if you can work this out, though. The average UK worker, how many times a day do you think they're interacting with AI but not even realising, do you reckon?
Ooh, are we talking about a percentage or
Number. So
number?
number of times.
Number of times. I'm going to say, I reckon this is a lot more than I think it is. I reckon it's maybe like 35 times.
You're close. It's 25.
25.
Yeah, which is
Ooh,
still a lot, right? If you think
is.
about an AI tool or some sort of AI form, like, yeah, 25 times in every day, it's now an AI decision over a human decision. Pretty mad, right?
It is mad. It's probably going to increase as well.
Yeah.
Pretty
Yeah.
scary.
Well, I think it's like 100 times a day someone's picking up their phone or something, or checking their phone, something
Yeah.
like that. So if that's every time it's using AI to do that, that's equally, then that's going to quadruple that figure,
Yeah.
isn't it? So pretty mad. What do you reckon AI is projected to contribute to the global economy in pounds by 2030?
That's a ridiculous figure. And I'm just trying to, it'll be in the billions, I reckon. I'm just trying to work out. I'm going to go, it's going to be around like 50 billion. So it's a big number.
So it's in the trillions.
Oh, shit.
It's 12.4 trillion is going to contribute by 2030, which is pretty mind blowing, right? And I think just a sign that getting on the gold mine, right? As Nick said at the start, this is something we need to be actively looking at every time of day. Final stat for you: AI. What percentage does it now influence the ad targeting decisions on Google and Meta? Do you reckon?
It's big. I know that. I'd say it's near enough. We're going percentages again?
Yep.
Yeah, I reckon around 80%, I think.
You're not far off. 91%.
Yeah, that's only going to get even larger, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know we've had some scaremongering going on with Meta potentially just being like, you give it a budget in creative, but I think it changes things a tiny bit where creative might become a form of targeting instead of it being done like, I'm going to target X person in X place.
Yeah.
It's quite cool.
It is, yeah. You look at, like, it's all about now not targeting the keyword, it's about targeting the person. You look at AI mode, you look at AI overviews, it's all based on the places they've been, the websites they've visited, where they are, what device they're on, not that keyword. So, like I said at the start, the keyword, its lifespan is short. It's all about the audience, right?
When do you reckon it's going to go? I'm touting 2027. We're going to be in a keywordless future.
Yeah, I think you're right. 2027, we've said it now. But yeah, thanks for listening, guys. Hopefully you found this podcast useful. Thanks for joining me, Nick. I think it's been a really insightful conversation. And yeah, we'll hopefully speak to you guys in the next one.
Yeah, cheers, Chris. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.